I have to say that I'm shocked by both. The notes of the call reflect a conversation far more damning than I or many others had imagined. It is shocking at another level that the White House would release these notes and felt that somehow this would help the president's case or cause. Because what those notes reflect is a classic mafia-like shakedown of a foreign leader. They reflect a Ukrainian president who was desperate for U.S. support, for military support to help that country in a hot war with Putin's Russia, a country that is still occupied by irregular Russian forces and in which people face a very dangerous and continuing and destabilizing action by their aggressive neighbor. Now, I know the Attorney General is denying involvement in this, but nonetheless, you can see why the Department of Justice would want this transcript never to see the light of day. You can see why they have worked so hard to deprive our committee of the whistleblower complaint. And in fact, the opinion by the Justice Department is startling in its own regard, because in that opinion, the Department of Justice advances the absurd claim that the Director of National Intelligence has no responsibility over efforts to prevent foreign interference in our elections. Well, that will come as news, or at least it should, to the Director of National Intelligence, who is charged, among other things, with detecting foreign interference in our elections and with reporting to Congress about foreign interference in our elections. That a President of the United States would interfere with our national security, would interfere with the national security of our ally, and do so for the illicit purpose of trying to advance his election campaign, having already sought foreign help in his first presidential campaign, would now abuse the power of his office yet again, this time to seek the help of another nation in his presidential campaign, is the most fundamental betrayal of his oath of office. And I'd be happy to respond to your questions, but one final point about the whistleblower. We still don't have the complaint. Now that we have the Department of Justice opinion, I think it telling that they have released that and yet not released the Inspector General's legal analysis that takes issue with it. This is, again, Bill Barr's Justice Department trying to put out a misleading spin, in this case in the form of the department's opinion.
What is presidential impeachment? Impeachment is a trial without a judge or jury or prosecutor, but instead politicians accuse, prosecute, and stand in judgment of another politician. In impeachment proceedings, the House of Representatives is the investigator and the prosecutor. The Senate is the judge and the jury. It takes 67 votes to convict and only 34 to acquit. So we've had exactly 2 impeachments, both of which resulted in acquittals. Andrew Johnson was impeached for actions that were really more political at the time than criminal. And of course, President Clinton was the last president impeached. He was charged with perjury and obstruction. When the Senate impeaches and removes a judge, they're just removing one person's appointed official. When the Senate impeaches and removes a president, they're undoing the votes of millions. There's a lot of debate about what is an impeachable offense. The Constitution says treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors. In other parts of the Constitution, like the arrest clause, the framers list treason, felony, or breach of the peace. In the extradition clause, they list treason, felony, or any other crime. The framers knew what kind of language they were using. If they intended for the president to be removed for any crime at all, they would have put that in the text.
Well, I'd just like to say a word about the press conference. It was 40 minutes, and it was a torrent of lies. I mean, just a torrent of lies about Joe Biden, about Hunter Biden, about what the Democrats did regarding Ukraine. And it was a torrent of lies about the summary, what some people call the transcript of what was released today. I mean, you know, the good thing about this document, and whether it's a transcript or a summary and how much has been left out of it is a subject for another day, but what was released today showed that this president, when he talked to the president of Ukraine, was not talking about the national interest. The only agenda he had for that phone call was to get information to defeat Joe Biden. That was his only agenda. And, you know, that is bad enough. But there was also the most obvious and clear evidence of a quid pro quo about the military aid that the president of Ukraine badly wanted. And what did the president say when the president of Ukraine said, we want that
Javelin.
military aid and we're going to buy the Javelin missiles? What did he say? He said, I want you to do me a favor. You know what that means? It means he wanted him to do him a favor, and that is a quid pro quo.
You've now had a chance to read the whistleblower complaint. What can you tell us?
You know, on the way up the stairs, I was thinking about what your person just said. What the president said during the campaign is he could shoot somebody on the street and his base would stay with him. I guess what I read to me was the political equivalent of that, defying the Constitution, committing a criminal act and thinking, well, I can get away with it. Some sort of bizarre cult of personality. Deeply disturbing what we read this morning, alarming, reinforced to an extraordinary magnitude by the report that we've just read.
You've read, obviously, the summary, the rough transcript that the White House released, but now you've read the whistleblower's complaint. First of all, how long is this document?
Well, here's what I can say about it. It's extraordinarily detailed, and it's very, very well done. At this point in time, it is still classified. I think the White House is trying to imagine or figure out what it can or cannot, or what it wants to release. We would argue that it's not their call, that this was something meant to be sent to us in the first place, but we're living in real time right now. I mean, I think those actions, those decisions are being made right now.